It was Voltaire that said, "Judge a man by his questions rather than his answers." I believe there's a lot of truth to that. In fact, I think that your influence will always be proportionate to the level of your curiosity. First of all, people aren't going to follow you anywhere they do not believe you've actually visited. Ask questions that indicate you understand the path they're on. Learning to ask questions will sharpen your communication as well as sharpen your experience, sharpen your knowledge, and how you articulate and how you share that knowledge. And that's powerful. Good questions inform. They not only inform the person being asked, but they inform the person asking the questions. So good questions inform. Great questions transform. Great questions transform the listener. Great questions transform the hearer. Great questions transform the relationship between the two. The best ideas and the ideas that are the easiest to buy into are the ideas that are born out of questions that elicit response and give ownership to the idea, or at least share ownership for the idea with the listener. So by asking a question, I invite your participation. And if you have an aha moment where you see the solution and you believe that the ideas are born from your own input and born from your own innovation, you are going to be far more sold out to that idea, sold out to that solution, and you're going to have more energy to apply that idea, to apply that solution. And that's the power of questions. That's the power of shared discovery. After doing a deep dive, I discovered that Jesus, during his ministry, was asked more than 180 questions. Of the 180 questions, I only found 3 instances where he actually answered those questions, or rather answered those questions directly. In fact, Jesus asked a grand total of somewhere in the ballpark of 307 questions. He was a master at using questions to reposition people, change their mindsets, and align himself with them, creating commitment and buy-in. I've said it like this: question everything until you learn something, and avoid answering anything until you've questioned everything. I find that usually the deepest and most revealing answer to any question is a question that makes us dive deeper. We extrapolate ideas from numerous perspectives, and that means more complete data. That means more complete creativity and awareness, and that produces better results. That produces better outcomes. I say it often like this: all of the ideas to get ahead are not in one head, and we can access the ideas in more heads by asking more questions. I think often we're afraid to ask the questions because we're concerned about the time that it may take. We're concerned about complicating the overall situation. And it's rare, it's very rare that taking the solo approach to solving a problem, or trying to take the solopreneur path to solutions, gives us a well-rounded and thorough plan that solves the problem. Most of the time, when Jesus is confronted by a question, he responds to the question with a question, which is why I've concluded that we literally should develop a habit for questioning everything, at least nearly everything, until we've learned something, and answer nothing until you've questioned everything. And the better you learn to question the questions and the answers, the more often you will produce positive, favorable outcomes for everyone. I find that most questions are going to fall into one of 3 categories. And the 3 categories are personal, professional, and emotional. Now, a question can certainly be professional personal and emotional. And that might be the most powerful of questions, is that hybrid question that takes the respondent to all three levels. However, you can ask a hybrid question that is personal and professional. You can ask a hybrid question that is personal and emotional. You can ask a question that is professional and emotional. But somehow when we bring all three together, now the risk is higher. Anytime you bring emotions into the question, risk is elevated. And we certainly want to take that into consideration. Often in networking scenarios, I make the effort to ask professional questions. But if I can make the question professional and personal, I seem more genuinely interested. I seem more curious. And I think it's Dr. Stephen Covey that said it this way: seek first to understand, then to be understood. By asking personal questions, I appear to be understanding, and I come across as someone who wants to understand. By asking professional questions, I come across as understanding. The moment I move into the emotional area, I may be perceived as prying. I may be perceived as perhaps being a little too involved or going where I've not been invited. And you'll notice right away, pay attention to body language. If they physically pull away from you, lean away from you, or even turn themselves oppositionally, watching that body language is really important. I know I need to back off and perhaps change the subject, at least moving it away from that emotional level. And so I may even correct my question. Say, I apologize. What I really meant to ask was, and reframe the question. So framing the question, understand that your framework is going to make the question either professional, personal, or emotional, or some hybrid of all three, or two of the three. Learning how to articulate questions from this framework will empower you to ask more empowering questions. Now, first of all, you want to empower the participant to share. You want to empower the participant to give you answers. And so you want to ask open-ended questions, obviously. Closed questions, questions that can be answered with a yes, a no, or a single word, should be avoided. You want to ask open-ended questions, questions that give them opportunities to share as much information as possible. And then you want to practice the lean and pause. Lean in, look at them directly, make eye contact, but don't necessarily hold it, and appear poised to stay until they're finished talking. And then bite your tongue. Avoid interrupting them. Because often when you ask an open-ended question, they'll say something. They may say something right away that triggers in your mind a response. Hold that response and avoid interrupting them. Often we ask a question only to solicit an opportunity to respond. And that can be dangerous because it says, I'm not really that interested in you. I'm interested in selling you. I'm interested in serving you. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but especially in the early stages of communication, I want it to be very crystal clear that I want to understand you. I want to understand your position. I want to understand why you are in pain and how I can help alleviate that pain and how I can help support you in that recovery process. I often talk about tactical silence. It's that look, lean, and listen. So look, lean, and listen. I'm going to look at the person. I'm going to make eye contact, not necessarily holding it, but I'm making eye contact, which says, I'm focused on you. I'm going to lean in just a little bit, and I'm going to pause. And I want to pause long enough, and so I'm committing myself to stay here. Leaning in indicates that I'm here with you. I'm making eye contact. I really want to hear what you have to say, and I'm pausing. I want my body language and my eye contact to simply communicate to you that I've asked a question and I'm here for the answer. I'm leaning in just a little bit. So look, lean, and listen. That listen is the tactical pause. It's the tactical silence. And ultimately, collectively, all together, that lean, look, and listen is going to communicate what I call strategic humility. It's that disciplined effort to understand before I articulate. So again, questioning everything until I learn something and questioning again. And I may follow up a good question, and you'll know it's a good question if they talk for some time. I may follow up a good question with several more questions. I may follow up a question with a question as many as 3 to 4 times and more if I feel I'm getting the participation, the response, I'm earning rapport, credibility, and trust with the participant. I believe it was Peter Drucker that said the leader of the past knew how to tell. The leader of the future will know how to ask. I think we've arrived. It's so important that we are able to ask the questions that elicit response and make it comfortable for the participant to respond to us and connect with us. And that's really how connection happens, is the learning to ask those strategic questions, those tactical questions that communicate strategic humility. The shortest path to human connection is questions. I want to become a master asker. I want to become a master at listening, strategically, learning, hearing, and partnering, because the best answers are the answers we discover together, connected. It's one of the reasons I use the phrase frequently, stop networking and start connect working, because I get more out of connect working and you get more out of connect working. The most important thing that I can do at a networking event is help others identify the value in themselves and add value to them. If I can add value to them and help them discover the value that exists within them, they will love me. They will seek me out the next time they're in a room with me. They will want to be with me. They will want to be around me because I'm safe, because I'm interested, because I value them and I add value to them. Actually working on a workbook right now, the notes that are around me, and really the reason I'm having this conversation for this podcast episode is the work that I'm doing in this book. I'm putting together a workbook of questions that will help you think about questions a little bit differently and help you sharpen and craft your questioning skills so that you can become a better communicator through the art of asking questions. One of the games that I use in my workshops is the Only Questions game. And we break the room into groups of 3 to 5 people. Those 3 to 5 people may only communicate for the duration of the game using questions. So they will go around the circle, and each individual in the group must continue the conversation using only questions. So one participant will ask a question. The next participant must reply to that question with a question, and on and on. The moment somebody makes a statement or answers the question, they must sit down. And we'll continue this game until there's only one group left standing or one participant left standing. This game can get rather lengthy, so you might need to set a time limit, but it's an extraordinary exercise in the art and complexity of asking questions. And one of the things that you'll discover playing this game is that open-ended questions are far more difficult to craft than you might imagine. In fact, we've actually played the game where only open-ended questions can be used. And so in that case, you would sit down anytime someone responds with a statement or a closed question. That's a question that could be answered with a yes, a no, or a single word response.